So, first things first, you gotta crack this baby open. I got this Moleskine journal from Target for about $20, and I wasn't really sure what to expect because it was in plastic wrap, but the first thing that I saw when I opened it up was a return to page, so I just filled in my email. Then I began to write 2019 on the first page in pencil and traced over it with a fine liner Sharpie. After I was done, I realized I wanted it a bit thicker, so I went over it in Sharpie and erased all the pencil marks. As you can see, I was presented with a bit of a dilemma because the pages were way thinner than I expected, so I decided to cut out a cool design and paste it over. This gave me a bit of inspiration for the first page. As you can see here, I went a little crazy with the flowers and I decided to make a color scheme, and right now I'm doing the same thing I was doing earlier, but I realized I wanted it to cover the whole page rather than just the 2019. So then after that, I just got a white piece of paper, measured it to the size I wanted it, and pasted that over the design page I had to write on it. So I decided this was going to be my New Year's resolution page, so I just traced how I wanted the word to look in pencil, and I went back in with a Sharpie, and on the resolutions I went in with a Crayola super tip marker that matched my color scheme I had made. For my actual resolutions, I just freehanded them with a pen, but as you can see, I was referring to my resolutions from last year and notes I've written on my phone. Then I used a green super tip to outline the numbers. On the next page, I traced out all the boxes I was going to draw with pencil and then went over them with pen for my year at a glance. And as you can see, I used the same pen to write in my days of the weeks and my month names, and then my days, the actual numbers. I got tired because I kept messing up, so I took a break and took a pink super tip and went over the days a week in a highlighted fashion. I skipped about 30 minutes of me filling in numbers, but this is me freehanding the title of this page in the same green super tip and using a drop shadow design. At this point, I'm staring at the next page, figuring out what I was gonna do. I took this inspiration from my 2019 page and decided to do a flower design, so I just went in with the lightest pink super tip and filled in a bunch of flowers I had made, and then the real kicker, the time consuming bit that took me about 35 minutes, I went in with a black Sharpie and designed a bunch of little lines to make it look like it was an intricate rose. I cut out the sheet slightly bigger than the size it needed to be to make sure I had room to play with it, and as I cut it out and began to paste it, I made sure to use a separate sheet of paper so glue wouldn't get in my bullet journal and make the pages stick together. And after I glued it all in, I took some scissors and cut around the edges to make it fit properly. As I did with my New Year's resolution page, I began to measure and cut out a strip of white paper that I would stick onto the background and use to actually write on for the page. After I sketched it in pencil, I traced my design with a Sharpie and colored it in with a green super tip. I wasn't really too careful with my coloring because, as you can see, I just cut the banner out with some scissors. I then used Sharpie to write in the title of the page, and I pasted the banner into my book. It turns out I did the banner a wee bit too big, so I just trimmed off the extra edges. I used a ruler to divide a square sheet of paper into 9 equally spaced boxes. These boxes represent my milestones, and I got out my mini paper cutter to speed along the process of cutting up the boxes. But it didn't really work as well as I hoped it would, and the boxes came out a little wonky, but it's okay. For each milestone, I designed a picture with a pencil, went over it with a super tip, and captioned it with a fine liner Sharpie. These are a couple of the ones I did, but I just continued this process until I was done. I ended up only using 6 different milestones, but after I was done with all of them, I laid them out onto the page to see how I wanted them. After I situated them properly, I began to paste down all of the milestones. After I finished the layout, I flipped back through from the beginning, and I don't know guys, I'm getting so excited about this. Like, it looks so cute. I think I'm doing a great job. There are a lot of unexpected things to come out already, and I'm not even done, but it just shows you that this system is just very creative and just about expressing while also being efficient and helpful. Yeah, helpful. For my next page, I traced the title with a Tombow brush pen, and as you can see, I'm not good at cursive at all, but I'm working to improve it. But then I used a star stencil and a green super tip to make a banner type thing of sorts, and then I went in with a pink super tip to write the actual list this page was for. And something I noticed while doing this page is that the super tips didn't really bleed through the page as heavily as the Sharpies. So if you have a thinner paged notebook like me, maybe use super tips or a marker that's comparable versus a darker marker. But for this next page, I decided to do something different, spice it up a little. So I ran out of my glue stick, so I had to use liquid glue and a butter knife to spread it. And then I decided to paste in a sheet big enough to cover 2 pages versus 1 and not draw what I was going to do beforehand, so I could do it while it was in the book and I could look at it like an actual page. I think y'all know the routine by now, but I started this layout with tracing it in pencil, then going over it in Sharpie, and then filling in all the color with a super tip. Again, we have the same pattern of design with pencil, trace with Sharpie, and color with super tip. But I think something important to note here is that I'm very careful about where all of my colors goes in regards to transferring to other pages by putting in sheets of paper between the pages while I am coloring. I skipped ahead till after I had finished filling in the books and the titles. As you can see, I left the bottom row empty to fill in case I wanted to add any titles later in the year. This next spread is a last replace page, which I saw in a couple of different people's 2019 bullet journal videos, but I just used the same method I did to make the stars on my what to do when I'm down page to make these circles. I traced the lines on this page with a green super tip, and I did the amount of lines based on how often I needed to replace or do the task on the page. And after I completed that, I went over the icons I drew and the titles with a fine-tipped Sharpie. After I was done with that, I thought the page would look better if I differentiated the different sections more clearly, so I went in with a dotted line to make them separate. For this next page, I decided to combine my layout from my to be watched and the other gluing pages I had done. So I measured the size of the bullet journal, made sections on a white sheet of paper slightly larger than that, and on one half of the page, I went in with all of the green markers I had been using up until this point and made a bunch of squiggles to just make a Mod Podge of colors. I did the same thing with the pinks on the other half of the page. After I was done with this, I cut out both sheets of paper and glued them into my journal using the same liquid glue and butter knife. With the liquid glue, I found it was better to use extreme caution and put pages in between the pages to prevent transfer of stickiness. And of course, after all of that was done, I just trimmed down the edges to make the pages fit properly. After the base of the page was all secured, I began pasting in the sections I had cut out to write on. This spread was actually a mini version of a chart that I have on my wall detailing the colleges that I may apply to, the colleges I have applied to, the colleges I have been accepted to, and the colleges I've been waitlisted at. Obviously, since I'm a junior, I have not applied and been accepted or rejected from anywhere, so that's why only one section of this spread was filled out. But I wanted to end off the beginning of this bullet journal with an inspirational quote. This particular quote says, "This cannot be the year of talking, of wishing, of wanting. This must be the year of you get it done." I just think that was a very powerful quote, and I just outlined the words with my Tombow brush pen. And here is the final flip through of my very first bullet journal. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and remember to LOL all the time in both ways. Bye guys.